Hi everyone, I'm Ariel. I'm a PhD student at Hebrew, working with Professor Shmuel Peleg. Thank you for inviting me, even though I'm a vision guy. I hope that you guys will find this interesting. I'm sure that I'll start by saying that I'm sure that at least 99% of you know more about speech than I do, but we got pretty nice results considering this fact, and we're consistently improving them. So here we go. All right, so just a little exercise to start with, just to demonstrate why this is difficult. Can anybody tell what he's saying? Right? Okay. So, what? Mandarin? All right, we'll see soon. So how do we define speech reading? If you look online, there's a bunch of different definitions. But basically, it's the task of inferring phonetic information from facial movements by observing them visually. Sometimes people call it lip reading. Lately, they've been calling it speech reading because there really is extra information within the other facial movements, and we'll demonstrate that later. Basically, there are two approaches for speech reading or lip reading. One approach is the visual to textual mapping, in which we take silent video frames of a person speaking, like you just saw, and we try to map those to text. And the other one is visual to auditory, where we actually try to output an acoustic signal of what the person is saying. So that's the approach that we took. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of taking this approach? The advantages are, first and foremost, we can use what's called natural supervision, meaning we don't need any labeled data sets. All we do is take a video where we get the audio for free because it's recorded simultaneously, and we just separate them and the audio becomes our output. So there's no labeling of phonemes or characters or words or anything like that. Just give us a video, we'll separate it. And another advantage is that we can, there's a lot of other information in speech besides for the text that the person is saying, like emotion and prosody and that kind of stuff. And another important advantage is that theoretically it's vocabulary agnostic, meaning as long as the person is speaking in a language that has phonemes or visemes that are in common with the language that the system was trained on, then it should be able to learn these words as well. Disadvantages are, at least in the current state, it's speaker dependent, meaning we have to train on a specific person in order to get his or her voice correct. And as of now, it's less accurate than other lip reading systems that you may have seen. Came out of Oxford, DeepMind, very recent work. So there's room to improve here. And possible use cases for this kind of a system are, I mean, obviously, if it works well enough, it could be transferred into text, where we would get the textual as well. But for audiovisual speech enhancement, Google Hangouts or Skype, somebody speaking in a noisy environment like we saw previously, but with a single microphone. And we could think of it, as the sci-fi case of like a long-range listening device and try to tell what people are saying. So we'll start by explaining the different representations of our model. So the visual representation is basically a volume of grayscale of the speaker's grayscale images of the speaker's face. They're cropped, obviously, into just the facial region and rescaled to 128 by 128 pixels. We found that K, meaning the volume depth of 9, worked the best, but the truth is it doesn't really make so much of a difference. We'll see in the results later on. The speech representation, so we used LSP coefficients. So basically, the procedure was downsample the audio to 8 kilohertz, use 8th order LPC. I know this is relatively a low dimension for high fidelity modeling of human speech, but it was good enough. Basically, we take windows of 40 milliseconds with half overlapping segments, and we concatenate every two successive LSP vectors. So basically, the idea was for the network output for every given volume, for the network to output the audio of the middle frame. So the video is at 25 FPS, which is 40 milliseconds. The output of the audio of the network is 40 milliseconds of audio. So it's 18 numbers altogether. And here's the reconstruction model. So we use a VGG-like CNN to do the sound prediction. Like I said, it takes a volume of video frames or a facial region, grayscale frames, and it outputs, like I said, 18 numbers, which represent two successive LSP coefficient vectors. Now, the reconstruction from the LSP vectors, we don't have any excitation or pitch information, so we just used unvoiced excitation, and you'll see it sounds pretty bad, but it's intelligible somewhat, but there's whatever, you'll see. So this is another thing that can be worked on. Anybody here familiar with a grid corpus? All right, so it's a relatively, I guess you can consider it the MNIST of audiovisual speech processing. Basically a very simple 51-word vocabulary that it's basically 3-second clips. Each one consists of 6 words, 1 from each column. All right, so you have 4 options for the first word, 4 options for the second word, 4 for the third, and then 25, I guess, and so on. The corpus consists of 34 speakers, and each one has 1,000 3-second videos. So like I said, 25 FPS. It gives us about 75,000 frames per speaker. So how did we evaluate our results? We used Amazon Mechanical Turk, which is a protocol used by the paper here I put on the bottom, which did kind of a very similar thing. Without the CNN, they used handcrafted visual features, and they also output audio. So basically, the transcription task was either audio only, meaning only give the listeners the audio visual, so take the reconstructed audio and stick it back with the original video frames and play it back. And the third task was out of vocabulary audiovisual. So like I said, potentially a system that's designed like this can reconstruct words that it hasn't seen in the training set, because it's basically dependent on 40 milliseconds of speech and not on entire words. So what we did here was we took 2 digits each time. So out of the 0 to 9, we left out 2 digits, and all right, whatever. Maybe I explained it later. But we took 2 digits out of the grid corpus, left them out of the training set, and then only put them back during test time. So let's say we left out 0 and 1 and trained on 2 till 9, and then we gave the 0 and 1, the videos that include 0 and 1 for testing. So that was the third evaluation, and there were about 400 videos that were transcribed by 23 different people. So here is, I guess, an illustration of the results. So on the top, you see the original LSP vectors, waveform, and spectrogram. And on the bottom is the leftmost LSP coefficients is the actual output of our network. The middle one is the waveform of the LSP vectors excited by white noise. And then the spectrogram that you see on the right side is just take the spectrogram of that waveform that we got. So you can see the formants are missing, obviously. but the spectral envelope is pretty similar. So, like I said before, we also looked at what happens when we take a full facial region versus only using the mouth region, which is pretty much the only thing done by the other works. And you can actually see the graph here is the blue graph is what happens when we use the full face, and the green one is when we use the mouth only. And it shows you the loss of the network, and the x-axis is the depth of the video frame, meaning the volume size of the facial video frames that we give it. So when you give it one frame of video, it doesn't do very much, but when you start giving it a little bit of temporal context, it already the loss goes down pretty quickly. And like you see, the full face is a lot lower than the mouth only, which is interesting. So here are the transcription results. So again, like I said, audio only and audio visual. 10 is the paper that we're comparing to with the handcrafted visual features. So it's about 80%. So the protocol says that you have to give the transcribers the vocabulary, because these aren't just regular English sentences. It's very hard to set white with P2 soon. Nobody's gonna guess that. So you actually give them the data set, and it's about 80% accuracy on the full data set where all of the words are represented in the training set. So here are some results. So that's the video I showed you at the beginning, and here's our output.
Been read by A0 again.
So it's been read by A0 again. Like I said, it sounds very robotic, but I guess it was enough for 80% intelligibility, so I'll play it again.
Been read by A0 again.
Been read by A0 again. When you listen to these videos a lot, then you start being able to read lips as well, so you don't even need the... So here are the results for the added vocabulary test. Basically, like I said, we leave 2 digits out every time, and then we average the results across the 5 splits. So 2 digits, like I said, every time. And chance would be 10%, right? What's the 5th word that the person is saying? You have a 10% chance of getting it right. 93.4% is from the full data set. So when all of the digits are represented in the training set, the digits are gotten right 93.4% of the time. And we get about half that. So it's 5 times better than chance, but still not anywhere close to the results we get if they're all present in the training set. And here's an example of that. So here's the silent video.
They reckon the assessment.
Anybody catch the 5th word?
They reckon the assessment.
7? Anybody hear 7? 7. So again, the words 1 through 4 and 6 were present in the training set. The 5th word, the number 7, was not present.
They
So
reckon the assessment.
she's saying 7, don't worry. All right, so what's next? Like I said, this is work in progress. First of all, we want to improve the video to speech. First, I mean, the most obvious one is just improve the sound of the audio quality, so it sounds more natural. Try it on more challenging data sets. We want to see how far we can get this added vocabulary to work within the same language, out of language, and so on. And like I said, we can even try, if the audio quality is good enough, we could even try doing automatic speech recognition on the output, and then we'd get the textual, the visual to textual mapping as well, just kind of for free. And then we're also working on specific applications like speaker separation based on the video to speech output, and also speech enhancement. So that's it. The paper, the code, and samples are all online. So you guys are welcome to check it out. I tried to make it as easy as possible to understand. In any case, again, like I said, we have a couple things in the pipeline. Hopefully they'll be published soon. So hopefully, yeah, he'll continue to be interested. Thank you.
As you said that the recognition is language dependent, that you need to train on the correct language.
So you do need to or don't need to?
I think you said that it's required to train on the...
No.
So,
Speaker dependent.
okay. So it's language independent?
Theoretically.
Okay.
Theoretically.
But the question is, do you think you can do language recognition by the motion of the lips, how they moved, to make language recognition? Because I assume each language has different dynamics.
I'm sure that there would be languages that would be more difficult to differentiate between, but I'm pretty sure that you could probably do pretty well on most languages, on discriminating between most languages.
I'm highly skeptical that it would be language independent because of co-articulation, basically. You know, the realization, presumably also the visual realization of our language depends on the phonotactics of the language. And so, on the other hand, I think you could improve your system by having learned those phonotactics. Basically, learn a language model, like for what the underlying likely sequences of acoustic realizations are. Mm-hmm. Have you thought about doing anything like that?
The truth is that we actually trained on one. We're trying all kinds of data sets now, but we actually took one video of our Prime Minister, Bibi Netanyahu, with a videoed, I guess, address to the APAC conference. He wasn't able to attend this year. So at the end, he says, "Happy Purim," and we were able to tell that. So he said it with the American accent. So he didn't have the reish that comes from down here, but it was okay. I mean, again, it wasn't perfect, but we were able to tell that that's what he was saying. So I guess the bottom line is that it really depends on, I guess, on the accent and what exactly the person is saying. Meaning, maybe if there are enough phonemes or visemes that are in common, then somebody could just kind of fill in the rest, just subconsciously. So I don't know. It remains to be seen.
You mentioned the size of the frames that you were using, and I wondered whether you've tried to narrow it down a little. I mean, to use smaller frames.
Less than 40 milliseconds, you're saying?
Yeah, because I mean, usually in speech recognition
like
we use
25, 30,
we use small frames and
right.
with quite a possible large overlap, and maybe it can,
yeah, so we're working now with actually video that's shot at 30 FPS, so that brings it down to 33 milliseconds. It's a more difficult data set, so it's hard to tell if it's the speech representation that's better, but the data set is more difficult, or if it doesn't help at all. Obviously, I don't know if it's so obvious, but the higher the FPS of the video, right, the more information you have, and so it should be an easier problem. Again, we're working on it. We're working on it. Can't tell you for sure now.
So, thank you very much.
Thank you.